All right, and it's 12 o'clock on the dot, so we can get started. So welcome everybody, Happy New Year. Welcome to the ASSP Long Island Chapter January technical meeting. Looks like we have a good turnout today. I see we have a lot of newcomers that might not be familiar with our group. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Matt Harris. I'm the president of the ASSP Long Island Chapter. For those that might be unaware of the organization, ASSP stands for American Society of Safety Professionals, and our local chapter is made up of folks across Long Island specializing in occupational safety, environmental safety, risk management. We have members in healthcare, in manufacturing, and insurance. The list goes on. We meet monthly throughout the chapter year, both virtually and in person, to provide members with professional development opportunities, such as technical meetings, as well as networking events and social outings. So just a quick plug for anyone that's interested in potentially joining our chapter, or anyone that's a part of the chapter that might be looking to get more involved and might be interested in joining the executive planning board. You can go to our LinkedIn site or our official website at li.asssp.org for more info. Today, we're happy to have two fantastic speakers with us, Mr. Rob de la Espriella and Dr. William Toth, who will be presenting on the incident investigation process, specifically on Rob's patented BlueDragon methodology, which is a process of causal analysis through the use of critical thinking using a highly efficient and flexible template. This is a process used by companies such as Westinghouse, the Nuclear Weapons Complex, and U.S. Department of Energy National Laboratories. Speaking for myself, I was trained through Brookhaven National Laboratory as a causal analyst through BlueDragon, and I'm excited to be able to share this with a wider audience. I think it has wide-reaching benefits for our members, whether you're at a large-scale, say, Department of Energy facility or within a small consulting firm and everywhere in between. I've utilized the process participating in and leading causal analysis investigations for both simple and complex incidents. I've been in one that took a week. I've been in one that lasted a whole month. I think it says something about the process when someone like myself, without a background in event investigation, can come in and successfully perform a root cause analysis on an incident, say, related to electrical safety, when that's not a specialty of mine. So it's all about following the process, which helps to develop the right questions. And when you ask the right questions, you then get good answers that bring you to the deepest seated causes. So we're going to get started here in just a minute. I just wanted to cover a few housekeeping items. We do plan to have interactive breakout rooms in the meeting. All attendees should have received an email with the links to those demo charts that we'll be working with today. I also posted the links in the comments, although I'm told by Rob that the links tend to work better out of the Zoom chat. And what I'll do is I'll finish sending out another iteration of the same email just so everyone has it in the top of their inbox. And we'll get more info on the breakout rooms from Rob when the time comes. And I'll also just quickly mention that we do provide CEUs for this event. So all attendees will be provided a link after the event with instructions on how to go about claiming those CEUs. And just a note, be sure to follow the instructions on the email in a timely manner, just to ensure that it'll show up on your transcript. We want to make sure that everyone gets credit for this. Now, with that being said, we can get to our speakers. We have Dr. William Toth, who has an electrical engineering degree, a master's in industrial engineering, and a PhD in organizational systems, where his research included high-consequence industrial accidents and organizational dysfunction leading to events such as espionage and mass killings. Bill spent most of his career at the Y-12 National Security Complex and the Oak Ridge National Laboratory. In '96, he started working on nuclear nonproliferation and security issues in Russia, and for nearly 25 years, Bill traveled around the world protecting nuclear and radiological material. He retired in 2021 from the Nuclear Nonproliferation Organization at ORNL. And after his retirement, Bill joined Rob at BlueDragon and has helped to advance the effectiveness of the integrated problem-solving system through the adaptation of modern advances in behavioral and accident analysis. And we also have Mr. Rob de la Espriella, a former U.S. Navy nuclear sub-officer and the founder and CEO of DLE Technical Services. Rob is one of the foremost experts in solving complex human-centric problems in modern operating environments, with over 30 years of experience in leading and facilitating investigations, root cause evaluations, audits, and assessments.
Good afternoon.
Rob became a subject matter expert in root cause analysis in 1988, completing a formal training in numerous problem-solving methods, including Kepner-Trego, management oversight risk tree, Taproot, Phoenix method, and Lean Six Sigma, to name a few. And in 2018, Rob developed the BlueDragon hyper-integrated causal analysis methodology, which is why we're here today. So Rob, Bill, thank you for joining us whenever you're ready.
Thanks a lot, Matt. Appreciate it. And Bill and I are really happy to be here with you today to introduce you to what we feel is the gold standard for conducting safety investigations and other types of investigations. And it's called the BlueDragon Integrated Problem Solving System. So we have about 15 minutes worth of prepared remarks for you today, PowerPoints, if you will. And then we're going to show you a few real world applications of BlueDragon so you get a sense of what it can do. But then I think the cool part is, rather than boring you with death by PowerPoint, we're going to immerse you for about 30 minutes into the BlueDragon ecosystem. So we're going to divide you up into small teams and put you in virtual whiteboards and put you in breakout rooms so you can talk amongst yourselves and actually work on one of our charts. So in that way, you're going to see how we can rapidly gather, organize, analyze information on these BlueDragon charts, which is actually how I have started to do all of our investigations post-COVID, completely virtual world. So let me start the slideshow here and get cooking. Can everybody see the slides? Yes? All right.
Yes. Yep.
So speaking about safety incidents, now safety incidents are human-centered problems. And if we were to create a formula for what's causing safety incidents, I'd say that humans would be this infinite variable in that equation, in that formula, because humans can behave in unpredictable ways, as you know, and they have a pesky habit of bypassing any kind of defense you put in place. So no matter how robust our line of defenses are, humans just can figure it out and they manage to get themselves hurt. How many of you have heard of the Darwin Awards? So if you haven't heard of the Darwin Awards, go Google Darwin Awards, and you're going to see an annual list of ways in which humans fatally injure themselves in really innovative ways. So humans are quite interesting animals. And that's what makes solving those kind of problems really tough. It's not a linear equation that you can solve with math or science. Human-centered problems are very difficult to solve, and they're the source of these safety incidents. What's made matters worse that in the last, let's say, 3 decades or so, our modern working environment, our socio-technical working environment has really made things even more complex. So now in the business of investigating safety incidents, which is what we're all in, we know that even small accidents can be learned from if analyzed properly. So today, we're going to immerse you in this BlueDragon system for analyzing minor incidents. We'll give you a minor incident to play with. We're also going to demonstrate how this same system can be expanded to tackle complex, maybe even wicked problems. So before we dive in, I want to talk about this subject. Why is it that in every industry, hospitals, healthcare, biopharma, nuclear, aerospace, you name it, there's a steady stream of recurring incidents. And of course, safety incidents is a part of that. Well, guess what? It's not hard to believe that one of the main reasons is that we're not doing such a great job of getting to the actual deepest seated causes of those problems so we can fix them and have them never recur again. So let me put a dollar amount to this because this is going to shock you. Can anyone venture to guess the annual cost of recurring human-centered problems in various industries in just the United States? If you could, can you throw it on the chat? I want some guesses going up on the chat as to what do you think the annual cost of recurring problems are in the United States alone caused by these human-centric type of problems. And someone says 2 billion. Joanne says 2 billion. Charles One-Upter with 5 billion. Any other guesses? You guys are not even in the ballpark. You're not even in the planet, let alone ballpark. So let me give you just 2 examples, and then we can sum it up from there. Recurring issues in the healthcare system, and I look at Delaney here, healthcare system, Delaney, the cost of recurring human-centric type issues in the healthcare system averages $760 billion to $935 billion dollars per year. And this is from the Journal of the American Medical Association. And that report, we're going to put that report up on the chat here if you want to read it. That's almost $1 trillion a year in waste in our healthcare system in the United States alone. Now, how about software? Everybody knows we spend huge amounts of money. So, per the Consortium for IT Software Quality, which puts out an annual report, the estimated annual cost of poor software quality is over $2 trillion per year on average. In fact, the number for 2018 was $2.8 trillion. So you add up just those 2 industries, healthcare and IT software, and you're up to $3 trillion a year in waste because we're not solving these recurring problems. So the costs are extraordinary, and we wonder how come they keep recurring year after year. And again, safety is a big piece of these kinds of problems. Well, so let's get into this. I've been a root cause practitioner since 1988, a subject matter expert in solving complex problems in nuclear, and that, of course, included reactor scrams, but also safety incidents. But just in the last 10 years, as I've been doing this for a living across the nuclear complex, nuclear weapons, Department of Energy, national laboratories, I've really synthesized everything I've learned in my career and put it into this one system. And now this is arguably the most advanced system for solving complex human-centric type problems in our modern socio-technical work environments, because I built it for our current era, if you will. If you're used to using things like 5 whys and the fish bones and things like that, those things were built in the 30s and 40s. They have not evolved with the times. So let me dive into the presentation here and talk about what is BlueDragon, what it's doing for us. It is a problem-solving system, next-generation system that is holistic. It's a holistic problem-solving framework that helps us improve safety and performance while reducing overhead, because we're actually going to get to solve problems faster and more accurately than any other methodology that's out there. And therefore, we're going to return all kinds of lost time and resources that have been spent on solving these recurring problems back to mission-critical tasks, what you're supposed to be doing. And by the way, all that other stuff is being done on overhead typically. So as I said, we've been vetted and implemented in some of the most technically challenging sites around the world, including, as I said, nuclear, the national labs. And what makes us different? Well, I've adopted a lot of great principles. The elimination of waste, lean, the 4 tenets of the Agile manifesto, like starting with the end in mind, and we create our charts as if it's the final product from the get-go. And it's very scalable to be able to address from the smallest to the biggest type problems. We've incorporated systems theory so that it's a very holistic approach, which is another major reason why organizations don't get to the real issues. They take a myopic approach. Maybe they focus on the people making the mistakes. And operator error is not a really good root cause, by the way. We use this for not only event investigations post-event, but it's very important that you learn to use it proactively for all kinds of self-assessments. And Bill is going to talk about that. And again, we have the foundations for this is critical thinking. And as we define it, is the ability and the skill set for organizing, gathering, organizing, analyzing information so that you can make great decisions, right? And analysis takes on different forms, data analysis, causal analysis. So we'll talk about that. And now I want to turn it over to my friend and associate, Dr. Bill Toth here, who's going to talk us through the next few slides. Bill?
So after Matt's introduction, I'm feeling a little bit self-conscious. Research work in high consequence industrial accidents, espionage and mass killings Yeah, I am an Enneagram 6, if anybody knows that system, and I'm a worst case thinker. We are interested in problem solving, and I'm married to a quality assurance tester who's constantly looking for problems as well, but we're not exactly as unfun as we sound. I think you actually need people like us on our team. Anyway, I joined Rob when I retired from Oak Ridge National Laboratory after managing a rather large group of professionals working on nuclear security issues around the world. And mostly so that I could focus on a deeper look into the management and solution of high profile, of complex problems. And what I find in encountering BlueDragon is 3 dimensions of value and that are relevant to the conversation that we're having today. First of all, infinitely scalable. Small projects can be done quickly and efficiently, sometimes in a few days or weeks. I was a root cause analyst also, certified at the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, and I was involved in many of these, both in the safety and the security realm. We could also handle large, highly complex problems using the same methods and the same tools. You'll see on the next slide some examples of the scalability. The method is application agnostic. So just a short story here, and traveled around the world. I was in a presentation with a foreign partner who had put together a chart, 6 different languages that translate safety and security with exactly the same word. So we spent a lot of time in conversation. My focus has been on primarily security. However, if you go deeper into my Y12 days, I was working on life safety systems, and safety has always been right there with me. But really, there are so many overlaps in safety and security in terms of how defenses are designed and mitigating problems that it's a really natural fit to work in both spaces. In the security realm, of course, we have this idea of malevolence or intention by the actor, and most of the times in safety it's accident, but there can be sabotage and malevolence and safety issues as well. Highest application experience, and so it is effective for any complex multi-systemic problem. So we can move out of safety and security and move into issues in healthcare, traffic, education, all sorts of things. There's application there too. Also, when Rob and I met, when I took Rob's course, the foundation of BlueDragon was in the post-event root cause analysis. But quite naturally, as we've talked and developed the model further, we see the advantage of the pre-analysis defense, vulnerability, and risk assessment. So next slide. So here's just an example of the scalability. We are organizing these problem exercises on, really, honestly, it was butcher paper. If you've been in Rob's class, you put it up on the wall in sticky notes, and they can go on for walls and walls. That could be just a short segment of the wall, or can go all the way around the room. So it's scalable in that dimension. Since COVID and in more modern application, we have been using some virtual whiteboards, and what you see there on the right is an example of that, and it's infinitely scalable. So you can put as many organizational elements, timelines, description of defenses, sources of data, anything that you need, you could put it on this chart. And again, scalable both in time and space. A small problem can only you could get to a workable root cause in just a couple of days, and a large problem can take weeks to sort out. The great thing about it is it's all on the sheet, and the reports tend to write themselves. And when stakeholders come in the room and make input, they can see what's been done before. It's really very integrative, so that everyone's right. I have something to add to the illustration of this problem. You add it and you categorize it and then prioritize it down the road. So again, this example shows a safety related problem, but we have many different kinds of problems in many different domains, and it's all just as effective. So next slide. So this is the whole, this so-called bow tie chart that talks about essentially where we're going, which is hazards and threats that an organization faces, and we have lines of defenses to keep those threats from becoming, enormous impact. You go through that event stage, and then finally look at what those consequences are. So in the traditional BlueDragon root cause analysis, we work on that right-hand side, or the final impact side, after the bad thing has happened. But it's quite natural, if you're looking at analysis of defenses that you would get into this in the beginning and say exactly what are the defenses that we have and what kind of threats can we imagine. I'm influenced kind of heavily by James Reason and that famous Swiss cheese model, which is bad things happen when the holes in the defenses line up and something is allowed to get through. So I think it's impossible to actually predict specific events like a 9/11 attack or some, real catastrophic event. But what we can do and what we should be doing is looking at all the defenses that we have in place and shoring up those defenses and making sure that we don't have any holes. So that's excellent work. And that is in that left-hand side, which is in the pre-event. So next slide. And just to focus a little bit more on the pre-event, we can talk about examples, culture, safety culture assessments. This is one thing that I'm really interested in academically as well. I had my background, I'm baked in the whole total quality management and Japanese management and Kaizen. The culture there, as many of you I'm sure know, was that if you found a deficiency and pulled the lever to stop the production line, you were a hero because you found something that at the small stage that could have turned into a catastrophe later on. We have to sort of become that culture in more places than we have, because oftentimes we're very defensive about auditors and we're defensive about finding any sort of deficiency. We worry that there are going to be repercussions or it can be looked bad from a stockholder standpoint or whatever. So I think to change the culture to say we're constantly looking for potential issues so that we can change them while they're small and not have them become catastrophes. Other examples, proactive safety reviews, vulnerability analyses, in my world, in security, threat assessments, risk evaluations, tracking and trending using statistical process control, actually beginning to see things go out of control and intervene before they even get to be the first stages of a problem, and then finally audits and assessments. So I think that's my time, and I will turn it back over to Rob.
Oh, thanks a lot, Bill. And you see how we're providing a lot of emphasis on preemptive, proactive. You really don't want to wait for events to happen. And some of the best things you can do is to use small, rapid investigations on the little issues and collect all this information and maybe even some of those initial sets of causes, and then do common cause analysis. Maybe once you identify a negative trend, get into and do a full-blown analysis as to what's driving that negative trend. So I think proactive is where you can really get ahead of things. Okay, so I have just one more slide, and then we're going to spend the rest of the time giving you examples and then diving into the actual case study we have for you to play in today. So this is just to give you a sense of some of our clients, including Westinghouse worldwide has adopted BlueDragon as their go-to complex problem-solving methodology. And again, the nuclear weapons complex, the Department of Energy sites, over here on the right, you see some Army bases that process chemical weapons, that destroy chemical weapons. So we're reaching over into Department of Defense, and of course, healthcare, aerospace, pharmaceuticals, hospitals, insurance companies. All of those can use this investigative process. And I think you'll see why here in a minute. All right, so let me dive into what is, BlueDragon. And of course, I don't have the 40 hours to teach you the class, so we're going to give you the 5-cent tour. It's divided in 3 phases. Phase 1 is all about critical thinking, and is the gathering, organizing, analyzing information. So in phase 1, we bring in all the evidence, the performance evidence. How are things performing? And then we also bring in the requirements, the administrative requirements, and also physical barriers, if there are some, like maybe rubber gloves or lead shielding, and cyber barriers, if there's cyber barriers that are also helping you stay safe, protecting your information. So we look at the line of defenses and we compare it to the performance evidence. And that performance evidence could be anything: timelines, charts, graphs, process maps, fault trees, control charts, personal observations, you name it. So we compare performance against the standards, and we look for symptoms like a doctor would. The symptoms are the irregularities that we see when comparing what happened with what should have happened, and we process it like a doctor. So a doctor sees you have high blood pressure, high temperature, that's what we go chase to find out what's causing that problem. Once we get all of this evidence and information, we do this initial analysis to identify irregularities. We pursue them through questions. All of phase 1 is about generating lines of inquiry questions. We take those questions to phase 2 and do cause and effect analysis with affected stakeholders. We get to the root causes, and we go to phase 3 with those root causes. We engage, once again, the stakeholders who are going to own these issues, and together we develop the corrective action plan. That's it in a nutshell. So it's a comprehensive system for getting all the information together on one chart, analyzing it, generating great questions, prosecuting those questions with the subject matter experts in the organization, and then going to the solution phase with the affected stakeholders. We, the analysts, don't have to be the subject matter expert of whatever we're looking at. We have to be problem-solving experts. Matt made that point earlier. He's not an electrical safety guru. He is an expert at solving problems using a methodology, in this case, BlueDragon. All right, so a couple of examples just to give you a sense. This is a proactive investigation of something that could have killed someone. In fact, if you go to OSHA or the Bureau of Labor Statistics, over the past few decades, the leading cause of death on construction sites is falling and struck by objects. So there's more than 50,000 struck by falling objects, recordable incidents in OSHA every year. 50,000 every year of falling objects. So this is what this uranium processing facility that's being built out at Oak Ridge was facing. They had all kinds of things being dropped from those cranes, and think of the acceleration. So you got soda bottles falling out of the crane. The sad part is they weren't even filled with soda. They were filled with a yellow liquid because the crane operators weren't taking their breaks. Okay, moving on. Radios being dropped from heights. Think of the weight of a 2 or 3 pound radio. Things flying out of the cab and raining down on people, things like forks. All right, so this is the old school. We did this one on the wall with the BlueDragon methodology, and we collected, analyzed information, requirements, and we did the cause and effect analysis that you see here. We had 4 team members. They were not SMEs. I was the lead. We looked at 30 defenses, line of defenses, i.e. requirements for dropped objects. We generated 60 plus questions that became our lines of inquiry. We had over 50 experts from the line organizations come and work with us, from 15 organizations. We had 8 sessions to prosecute this, and the whole thing took 3.5 days. And I want to make this point about BlueDragon. It is the most efficient, while at the same time being the most accurate method that you'll ever see. So the efficiency is incredible, the way we do business. And now for what could have been a fatality, an electrical shock at Oak Ridge National Lab, where we had just construction workers tearing apart a building and they didn't isolate the electrical loads. And in this case, they cut into a live wire and it blew up on them. The arc blew them back. It was 208 volts, 20 amps, and only half an amp will kill you. So there's again, the investigation. No SMEs. The 4 of us tackled this. We looked at 90 defenses, generated over 40 questions, 9 sessions with over 50 SMEs from the organization, and it took us 4 days. So very efficient. And I want to show you some more because I want to be able to show you the scalability of it. So here is a cultural assessment in the security area. This is a national laboratory that was experiencing serious issues. And you see here, this chart has, again, across the top, phase 1, all kinds of evidence. There were reports, there was lots of data analysis in the terms of histograms, Pareto charts. We had a process map, and all that was used to generate great questions. So then we went to phase 2 and brought in their experts, and we asked the questions, and we did cause and effect analysis. Most of you know this as 5 whys. But 5 whys is fundamentally too elementary for real in-depth analysis. Each one of these lines, these vertical lines, would be a 5 why. And you notice how many of them there are. And then we find the common causes down at the bottom, which are the issues, including the causes of the cultural issue. Here's another one, even bigger. That one, by the way, took 4 weeks. This one took 6 weeks, and it was done 100% virtual. And you see here that we had 6 timelines with information dating back to 2012. So a massive amount of information. We looked at over 200 references and requirements, and we put some on hyperlinks here on our chart for ease of access. We did a massive amount of data analysis, and we looked at earned value management systems, schedules with milestones, charts, staffing analyses, all kinds of analyses. We didn't put it all on here, but these are the ones we wanted to showcase. We generated about 70 questions, and then we brought in the subject matter expert from the organization to talk about this particular capital asset project and the issues. And there you see the results. The issues clearly highlighted in color, the cause and effect pathways clearly demonstrated from the bottom root causes to this middle row of significant contributors, all the way up to the initial set of questions, which are in fact the symptoms we identified in questions. And the symptoms came from evaluating our line of defenses, here they are listed, against the evidence we collected, the reports, the timelines, any evidence we collected. So I can't teach you the whole thing in the next 5 minutes, but I just wanted to go through this. And we're recording this so you can feel free to go through this again at a later time. So that one took 6 weeks, all virtual. This one took 1 hour. And that's what we're going to show you today. 1 hour rapid investigations can be very powerful. Same chart. You have your performance, you have your line of defenses, the requirements, you generate your questions, and you bring in the right people in one room, and in 1 hour, you answer the questions as best you can. You create your apparent causes and your game plan to correct them. This type of rapid investigation can be done in 1 hour to 2 or 3 hours. And that's what I want to show you today and actually immerse you in one of these today. So we have here your scenario. I'm going to throw you into this in a minute. And what we have here is just a small amount of information. We have some equipment issues, actually some interfaces with equipment that the person was working with. He was using a miter saw and to cut wood, and a piece of wood hit him in the eye. That's the incident, a safety incident. The miter saw blade guards were removed. He was not wearing eye protection, and we don't know about the gloves. So we're going to ask questions about those things with respect to the timeline here. So we have a timeline where way back in 18, the blade guard was removed from this miter saw and not replaced. And then in current day, the mechanic checks out the miter saw. He's going to use it for personal use. He starts cutting the wood, not wearing eye protection. He gets a splinter of wood in the eye, and then he goes to the clinic and is released. In normal investigations, we blame the worker and call it a day, right? Well, in BlueDragon, we want to go a little deeper. What are the requirements that should have prevented this event? What is our line of defenses? And a lot of it comes from the safety program. Miter saws must have blade guards, shop tools, eye protection requirements, training requirements, human error prevention program requirements, equipment checkout counter requirements, fitness for duty, and management observations. So we list the applicable line of defenses that should have prevented this type of issue, should have prevented an injury of this type. And now we compare, we do an analysis of defenses. We compare the defense, the requirement, against performance. And the performance here is very compact. It's just these 5 boxes. So the requirement says miter saws must have blade guards. The performance that we collected said, no, they were removed. So we're going to ask a very specific question about that symptom. Why was that blade guard removed and never replaced? And if we can think of a good follow-up question, we listed here, D1.2 is what about other miter saws? So we cross-reference the question to the defense. So defense number 1, D1, question number 1 would be D1.1. So you're learning how to cross-reference, create post-its here on the fly in a virtual environment. And this is a really baby incident, but the expectation is for you to dive in and generate at least 9 questions from the analysis of defenses, and then 4 more from looking at the equipment involved and the evidence on the timeline and generating your best possible questions from that as well. I'll give you about 10 minutes to do that because 3 per team, you just have about 3 or 4 questions each to generate. And then I'll open up the answer key so you get a sense of how we would organize these under the themes on a BlueDragon chart. And this is the starting point for phase 2, bringing in the people to talk to and ask the questions to prosecute it. And later I'll show you the actual final chart. The one I gave you before we even started was this one, which is a broken arm incident. And you'll see here, we had 3 timelines, more defenses, the equipment involved. We had a survey because there was a near miss. So that was all the evidence we collected. And from there, we generated questions. We brought it down here to phase 2. We brought in the workers, the supervisors, the managers, and came up with a list of issues. And then down here, we see how we prepare an action plan to address each of the issues, all in one very defendable chart. Now, here's an example of an even more involved safety event, a hydrofluoric acid incident. And I also point out that this has actually caused deaths. This type of incident happened recently at a Honeywell plant where someone received a splash of hydrofluoric acid and they were killed. That's this type of incident here. We have, in this case, 4 timelines, a lot more defenses that govern a chemical plant like this. We have all kinds of equipment interfaces. We have a drawing and surveys and Pareto charts. And again, it's a great learning tool to help you understand, and no matter how much information you collect, you need to draw insights, draw great questions, and bring those questions to phase 2 for cause and effect analysis with the subject matter experts, get to the root causes, and get your action plan together. Okay, so that's it in a nutshell. And here are your teams. And since we have X many participants, I'm going to create 8 breakout rooms. And I'm going to tell you which ones you're going to belong to. All right, so I'm just going to list your name. And now go to that email. And as I call out your team name, you're going to click on that link and dive into this chart that I just showed you. And you have about 10 minutes to generate as many questions as you can.
Hold on.
Does that make sense? All right. So this will be hopefully a fun and engaging exercise. We haven't tried to do a micro exercise like this live before, but we thought it'd be a little more engaging than simply lecturing you to death. So let's give it a shot. On team 1, you're going to have Alex Tullio, Jesse Kelly. Hey, welcome, Jesse. Good to see you. Megan Barnes. Go ahead and click on your team 1 link. Jesse, I'm glad you're here. Team 2 is going to be Charles Keeling, John Black, and William Dempsey. Team 3 is Jose Cato, Marilee, and Nicole Burholt. Team 4 is Cassie Acelta and Sean Hadniff. Team 5 is Jake Gantman and Joanne Robertson. Team 6 is Aminat Ademi and Lawrence Lettieri. Team 7 is Delaney and Martinio. Hey, good to see you, Martinio. And then the last one, team 8, is Carolyn Moore and Feroza Zanoni. So click on those links. And now I'm going to send you to those breakout rooms so you can talk amongst your team members and work through this, this example and do your best. I'll give you the answer key here in about 10, 15 minutes. But I want you to get immersed in this new environment, the way we do analysis right now, and your first taste of this process. Okay. Any questions before I send you to your rooms? Hey, have fun with it. There's no expectation.
You're muted, Rob.
Thank you, Bill. That's why Delaney didn't say anything. I was saying, I bet you're all anxious to see the answer key. All right, I think we're back. Fantastic. All right, and remember, it takes 40 hours in a course to learn how to do this. I don't expect you to do this in 5 minutes, right? But you got a sense of, here's the virtual environment. It's massively scalable. You have a teeny tiny little scenario with 5 timeline boxes. That's it. And just a few handful of defenses, the line of defenses. But you can see how we prosecute information, comparing what happened against what should have happened, looking for irregularities and challenging those using questions. And then we can ask folks. I'm going to show you this one just so you get a sense of how it turned out. So in terms of the types of questions to ask, you got the, why was the blade guard removed? Why was he using it for personal use? Why was he not wearing eye protection? And we don't know if he was wearing gloves. So we asked the question, well, what about the gloves? Did they receive the training as required? The evidence doesn't say so, so we ask. Did they use the buddy system? We don't know, so we ask. So we go to the requirement and we use parallel wording and say, okay, if this says I need to do that, did you do that? I don't know. I have to either ask or collect the evidence. Equipment checkout, was it checked for safety? I don't know. We asked the question and we had to have the right person come and answer the question. Did they have the 8 hours off between shifts in terms of fitness for duty? And were there supervisors overseeing shop activities? We don't know. It's not in evidence. So we ask a question that evaluates the effectiveness of that defense. And then we have equipment that was used. Same thing. We use the equipment to generate questions based on the evidence, or simply, was it the right tool for the job? So you see some of the questions here. Why was he using it for personal use? Why was the blade guard removed? Why was he not wearing eye and gloves? So some of these are duplicative. So now we condense here and we collapse any duplicates. And you see here that this question came up from defense number 1 and the equipment question number 2.1. It's the same exact question. And in your chart, imagine a mass of data. If you're organized and create references, you'll be able to keep track of where the question came from, just like this. So now to give you a sense, the at-risk behaviors and the error-likely situations are the behavioral qualitative analysis that we do in BlueDragon. So we include qualitative analysis with quantitative analysis if we have any quantifiable data. But behaviors is a huge key. Why did the people behave at risk? And did we set them up for failure, which is error-likely situations? So we organize our questions and we start getting answers. And here's the answers that kept coming up over and over. And you see the color coding. So the color coding is merely showing me that this is the exact same answer as everything in that color. We call those common causes. And it's almost like you're drawing an imaginary line to continue the analysis on this one box, because we don't want to have the exact same question 8 different places. So that's why we use this color coding for common causes. And here's what the answers came out. People were not replacing their blade guards because if you look here, management was told do everything to meet production goals. Nobody cares about safety as much. And one of the issues is that management cares more about production than safety. About using the shop tools for personal use, supervisors are not there enforcing rules because there's a shortage of supervisors. Management is not filling open positions, and so on. So you identify the issues that come out of the chart, and here's what this chart tells you. You have an issue with production over safety. You did find an issue about the mechanic working too many jobs and he was tired. He doesn't make a lot of money. So that's why he was trying to build a birdhouse for his daughter rather than buying one. There's a shortage of supervisors, so there's not enough oversight. We had issues with error performance not being used. The corrective action for that was rolled out ineffectively. The equipment checkout counter is not effective because that position is not in a labor contract, not funded. And mechanics not getting enough rest between shifts. And also the union leadership is telling them not to use the buddy system because you're ratting each other out. These are all very actionable things. This is not even a formal root cause. This is a rapid investigation that was done in about 90 minutes. So you get a sense of you can do something very quickly. This is the exact same model with more data, more questions that could be easily expanded to an apparent cause, to a root cause, or to a wicked investigation, the most complex of all investigations. And you saw examples earlier of something with 70 questions and all kinds of data analysis, massive amounts of cause and effect analysis. This is a little baby one to show you, you need to do at least this much, because what you don't want to do is fire Joe, discipline Joe, and not learn from this incident. And that's what we're doing. When I go back to where I started, we're wasting trillions of dollars per year because we don't know how to investigate our problems across the board. We're using antiquated techniques. We're not integrating information. We're not practicing critical thinking. And we just don't do the depth work that is required, the in-depth analysis that is required to truly solve these problems. We love to punish and discipline the worker, find out the low-hanging fruit that we can obviously see, put some Band-Aid corrective actions in place and move on, and we didn't solve anything. You can't solve the million variations of the problem that way. You have to solve the roots of the problem and then stop the hemorrhaging, stop the future events. And this is true for hospitals doing investigations, for insurance companies and their investigations, for aerospace incidents, nuclear incidents, you name it. They all fall under this problem. We don't understand how to do the depth work, and we're using lots of separate little tools that are by now quite antiquated given our modern socio-technical work environments. The tools that people are using haven't evolved since the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. Think about it. And that is all we have for you today. I hope it was a little more immersive. I went 1 minute over, but I will stick around and we'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. And of course, you have our PowerPoint, you have our contact information. Please reach out to us for any follow-up if you want to have any follow-up conversations. But thank you all for attending. And let me turn it back over to Matt to continue to facilitate this for us. I'm not sure what you want to do now, Matt, but we're going to stick around and answer any questions as long as you're here.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it. That was really masterfully done to be able to distill such a large amount of info into a nice bite-sized lunchtime meeting. So we appreciate that.
That was a challenge.
Yeah, so it being 1 o'clock, if anyone does have to log out, if they're going to another meeting or so on, thank you so much for coming. That would be great to get another few minutes, if your time allows for that, just to have, if anyone wanted to type in any questions into the chat or just unmute, we can have a quick discussion. Yeah, so if anyone has any questions, feel free. And as Rob said, we will be sharing the PowerPoint slides on our website, so stay tuned.
And so I'll point out, Marilee says, it does usually come back to systems problem, not just the one person. I couldn't agree more, Marilee, well said. It's never the one person. We have to understand the behavior of that person, and it's going to come down to something deeper. And that's why we use the systems approach. Well said.
And I just have to add in there, I'm fortunate that my first 10 years in safety, I'll put it out there. I was at Dow Chemical, and I couldn't have been brought up into the safety world any better. Learning from the best and how things are done and the expectations and all of the procedures being there and the behavior and observation expectations. I would have never thought about walking out of my building to go into a production plant without having all my PPE on. Never. And yet when I went into other facilities different times throughout my career, I was just blown away. I was so fortunate to have started where the expectation was there. It was an OSHA star site. Things were great, and yet I got to throw out there, because I'm in healthcare, and most recently worked in healthcare. Healthcare is such a paradigm opposite. Even back in 2004, when I started working in a hospital, I was blown away how, with the emphasis on patient safety and no lack of importance on the employee safety. And even here we are 20 years later, been in healthcare more recently, and there still is that it's all about patient safety, and don't get me wrong, if I'm in the hospital, I want my safety to be darn important. Okay. But at the same time, look at where we're at right now in healthcare with so many things going on. There are so many systemic problems.
I agree.
That
and
if they had been addressed, we wouldn't be there.
I agree. One of my friends is a PhD in healthcare, and Dr. Gevinen has been around the VA system, et cetera. And she tells me hospitals do a terrible job at investigating their incidents. And that's just black and white, according to a doctor. So anyway, I want to go to Nicole, who says, talk to quality. Some have had BlueDragon training at BNL. Nicole, what do you mean by that? Maybe I can.
I think that was a response to a previous question, the question about the software, Rob.
Oh, gotcha. Oh, talk to quality about, yes. Correct. So I want to say, we don't sell software. I don't believe in making software, because if you've ever bought a root cause program, the software simply charts your results. And if you don't know how to do causal analysis, it's going to chart garbage. So garbage in, garbage out. So we use a whiteboard, a clean sheet. We have a template, and you're to use critical thinking as the foundation for how do you analyze this problem, how you gather, organize, analyze information. I completely stress critical thinking over giving you some hokey software that'll chart whatever you put into it. And often those softwares can be easily manipulated. I've been told over and over. So I refuse to do that. You have a model, you have a rubric, you have a template, and then you have your head. So this is not very popular where everyone wants to have a little software on their phone, a little app. I don't make an app. I don't sell software. I want you to use your heads.
So Rob, can I ask let me ask a follow on for Marilee. It's a cultural thing. So the difference between compliance from a fear-based perspective and compliance from a, I don't know the best way to put this, but I know why it matters and therefore I do it perspective, which is a more positive sense of things. You know, I give an example. You know, I use a chainsaw on weekends. I live in East Tennessee. We have a lot of property, and I've put a little, I'm 59 years old. You know, I'm not as young as I used to be. And so I put a 1 tank limit on my chainsawing. You know, that cuts enough wood that I get kind of tired, and I figure that's enough for me. I'll do some more the next day, or go split things or do something else. So I'm not going on it from a compliance standpoint. I'm going on it from this other, you know, I've been in bad situations before, and this is going to keep me out of bad situations if I do it the right way. Compare that to where I came from at Oak Ridge National Lab, and this may be true of other national labs, which is everyone is watching everyone to get the gotcha on them. You know, I see you without your PPE, or I see you in a circumstance that you shouldn't be. And so it's a nuanced difference, but I'm interested in people's perspective on this, because what I'm talking about at culture is going towards I understand why this makes a difference, and that's why I do it, not because I fear that somebody's going to yell at me. Because I think the more positive one is more sustainable.
Right. And so you're going off of the personal risk management, an example you gave, right? Yeah. So you're managing your risk, and one of the layers or lines of defense or layer of control, whichever version you want to use, you know, that's an excellent thing you've done to put in the time factor, you know. And I can tell you, wished I had put in the time factor when I was being a weekend warrior, pulling weeds and doing yard work. You know, those stiff muscles, you know, it's like, okay, so you do have to think about truly that risk perspective. And I think that's why all of the field of safety, we've really gone to a risk management approach, as opposed to, dare I say it, strict compliance. I mean, you got to be in compliance, but then going forward, you've got to add those other layers of control, right? I mean, and in healthcare in particular, I'll give a good example of where somebody got hurt because they used their body for the patient to fall and slump down on to pass out, instead of that patient breaking a bone or hitting their head, you know, and because they did that, that was that personal, compassionate kind of a thing. And that's where in healthcare, it is really different, because that human caring element comes into play, and it's tough, you know.
But they teach that technique. Specifically, absolutely. In first aid, they teach the technique so that people can slump down on them. So
correct.
You know, I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe I was just complaining about the strictly compliant space, because it's kind of where I came from.
Yeah, no, I get that. I get that. And you reminded me, that's one of those, you know, when I learned behavior-based safety, I'm laughing because the gotcha was one of those things that we taught in the behavior-based safety to not do. You don't want to use the gotcha. You want to, you know, empathize with the person, and you want to make changes, but you don't want to use the gotcha as a way just to check a box and, oh, yep, I got you. I filled out my card. I saw you weren't doing that.
And I'll give you this example. I was a former Nuclear Regulatory Commission resident inspector at a nuclear site. what we said to our the folks on site is, if you find it, we're going to pat you on the back and say, just take care of it. If we find it, you're in trouble. So it's better for you to self-assess, find and correct your own problems, and not wait for the overseer to catch you or to catch something. But when you did point out something, we applaud you and we thank you and say, you're doing your job. That's what we want you to do. That's not the same way that the Department of Energy works, by the way, unfortunately, and maybe some other industries that I don't know about, healthcare and aerospace, but I tend to think that more people like Marilee and Bill are alluding to play the gotcha game than the, I applaud you for finding your mistakes and fixing them. That's what you should be doing. You should be self-assessing constantly and continually improving your defenses with that process. Let me bring in, we've got Jesse Kelly here, who's also another power user. Jesse, can you give us some thoughts on real world applications and your experiences with BlueDragon?
Yeah. So my name is Jesse Kelly. I'm the quality engineer at Brookhaven National Lab. I work as in the facilities and operations directorate. So you know, we do almost all the work, so we have almost all the events. So when the lab kind of implemented BlueDragon, I guess, Matt, when was that? 2018?
Yeah, it must have been
something like that.
at least 4 years ago now.
2019, something late 2019, yeah. So from then, that's when I almost naturally got a lot of kind of the firsthand experience, and at this point have done, you know, between probably close to 20 of these, 15 to 20 of these, and at times, you know, they were a struggle, and I had to reach out to Rob and you know, reach out to other people kind of in the BlueDragon network and kind of understand things. But as far as a tool, I mean, it's just night and day compared to what we were using, and it has really helped us, I would say, take that extra step to kind of say, you know, a lot of the times I have people, you know, I help people out with their investigations and they come to me with their causes, and I read the cause and say, well, why? Did you ask why? And like, well, no. Like, all right, well, ask why, you know, like you're not done yet. So and you know, really start to frame things. And I think Marilee said this the best, where it's a system approach. It's not you know, something is going to be influencing that behavior, and that's what really trying to find out, right? If someone's I was saying when we were just doing this practice, well, we have somebody who's not using, you know, a saw guard, you have someone who's not using safety glasses, you know, what's showing me is that behavior is allowed and enforced, and if not supported by management, right? There's a reason why they feel comfortable doing this. So kind of trying to understand what's driving that behavior. And yeah, the just using the tool, I mean, we've had to kind of use Excel a little bit lately, where now that Lucid chart has was a FedRep approved or something now. So we're trying to pull Lucid back into our arsenal. It's a fantastic tool. It's much better than Excel for these things. I would highly recommend against using Excel.
Fingers crossed on the Lucid Spark.
Exactly, yeah. But as far as you know, the tool, it's great, and there's a lot of resources, there's a lot of experience, and even if you don't get to the bottom, the most deep-seated cause, I mean, your investigations are just going to be much better in general. So it's kind of like, you know, shooting for the stars, shooting for the moon and landing on the stars or something. I don't know, this saying, like, exactly. you end up, it ends up being an improvement overall. So it is a little bit difficult to kind of, I would say, explain the layered causes in a report. So I'd recommend, and you learn this in the training, how to kind of outbrief with management and get your management on board with and understanding the process and what they're going to expect, because they're really no longer going to get what they were. I had my upper management, and there's a couple of B&L people, so I'm going to kind of I'll bring investigations, and they'll say, well, what about the dumb worker who did this? It's like, look, that you're not going to hear that from me. That's not going to be the answer to this report. It's not going to be a root cause ever. So it's always going to be why that quote unquote dumb worker felt like they were allowed to do whatever they're gonna
Blame
do.
the
So-
operator. Blame the operator. That's the easy way.
Exactly. Yeah. So we had upper managers like, well, what about this stupid thing he did? It's like, look, no one comes here to make mistakes. Well, at least that's no one comes here to get hurt. At least maybe they come here to make mistakes. So, yeah, I don't know. That was a bit impromptu. I'm sorry if I'm rambling, but yeah, it's a great tool. And
Oh, but I have to laugh, Jesse, and just chime in with the fact that when management finds out, oh, you mean we're at fault because we haven't provided enough employee or resources needed to get that project done in the time that we want.
There you go. I
You know,
forgot to mention,
or
I
laying
forgot
out
to-
expectations, or whatever it may be.
Matt, I was hoping you could, if you're going to issue a follow-up email, I forgot to mention this during our presentation, that I'm going to leave these charts open. I'm not going to delete them. I have a separate folder just for this ASSP presentation, and these
Okay.
10 folders plus the sample one, they're just going to stay there for folks to continue to play in this environment as long as they want.
Great.
Look around and get a feel for between this one and the next one, Sally, who broke her arm, which is the sample one I provided. You can look around and get a feel for the information that's captured on these charts and how we do it. Although, of course, it takes a class to learn, but at least you get a taste.
All right, yeah, we'll definitely include that in the follow-up email. All right, and love the discussions. Thanks everyone who's still here for calling in.
Bye guys, it's nice meeting everyone.
Joanne, is this all new to you? Are you completely a newborn in this environment?
You're muted, Joanne.
I know. I was trying to
There you
unmute.
go.
Sorry. Yeah, I knew nothing about this.
All right. So
I don't really have employees, so it's not really my thing. But it was interesting. I was wondering, actually, is it like a genealogy program? Like it just expands infinitely?
Yeah.
That's what it felt like.
An infinitely expandable whiteboard. It's just a
That's what
virtual-
it made me think of. Like when you see people doing genealogy and they just keep going, like it kind of had that feeling.
Just like that. Yes, and it's better than Teams, Microsoft Teams. It's better than anything that's just about it. By the way, Lucid is a billion-dollar company. This
Wow.
is not any kind of a Mickey Mouse thing. So I chose them because, first of all, they're great, love the product, they're huge, and they're being approved for government use, which is most of my clientele.
Awesome.
Good deal. Hope you got some out of it. And
Yeah, no, it was fun. Like I had no idea what I was doing, but it was still interesting.
you're learning to think critically. Think about it. You're learning to gather, organize, analyze information in a very systematic way. What happened versus what should have happened. There's always a standard, an expectation, a requirement, and you can bring in multiple sources of evidence to help you get that better conclusion, better decision before you take action. Right now, people use a single source. They don't really ask great questions, and they push the I believe button too quickly. So people are not critical thinking, and that's the basis for all of this.
Yeah, that's interesting.
All right, well, Rob, Bill, thanks again. I appreciate you guys donating your time to this. I look forward to future collaborations.
Yeah, our pleasure. We can do this anytime, and enjoyed it very much. Thanks for having us.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks
Thanks,
again.
Mary Lee.
Bye, everybody.
Enjoyed your conversations, Mary Lee. If you want any
Okay.
follow-up, please call us.
Okay, will do.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Bye,
All
everyone.
right, take care, everyone.